Welcome to the Startup Passport by eConsulate. We're at the Upstream Festival, and today we're joined by Jarell Habets. You're the founder of Shypple. Thank you very much for joining. And could you tell us a little bit about the company?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Jarell. I'm the founder and CEO of Shypple. Shypple is a digital freight forwarder, which basically means we are a company who is helping other companies to move freight across the globe, typically intercontinental, so via the air and via the ocean.
Mm-hmm. And how did you find out for yourself that there was a gap or need for the company?
Actually, I worked for a traditional freight broker. So this is basically the industry that sits between the cargo owners, which are retailers, wholesalers, trading companies, and the shipping lines or airlines. And these brokers actually make sure that these trading companies, these retailers, can actually book the freight on these vessels and these airlines. There's I think a couple thousand in Europe that do this. But they don't use any digital tooling. So they are basically a very traditional broker. They're sending back and forth a lot of emails with shipping lines on to book space, but also with their customers, the retailers. And that's basically where I worked for, and that's where I saw the opportunity to basically build a digital version of what was existing. The initial idea was actually to disrupt this via a sort of like a marketplace, so that retailers could book vessel space directly with shipping lines. But that was very difficult to pull off because customers actually wanted more than just vessel space. They wanted customs handling done by by the broker, but also trucking from the port to destination to the warehouse. So there's a lot more involved when we're talking about this typical brokerage firm. So when I typically summarize it, I always say we are a digital travel agent, not for people, but for freight.
And especially now in the digital age, a lot of companies making use of AI at the moment. Is that also something that you guys are doing, or did you not identify the need for that?
Yeah, we have. I mean, when I started in 2016, it wasn't a big thing yet, I would say. I mean, the technology was there, the use cases in terms of ideation were there. We are using it now to recognize a lot of the costs that are incoming. So when a shipment is booked via our platform, we see we book that with shipping lines and trucking companies to actually make the freight movement happen. So there's a lot of invoices incoming. So we use AI to actually recognize what costs are actually incoming and to what shipment that belongs. And we're also thinking in to outsource or to have AI do a lot of repetitive work. We're entering data from one document into another. We get very basic questions from customers. Is there a way we can actually automate that in a way or make our employees more efficient as well in answering those questions?
And then another thing that has been discussed also especially recently in regards to shipping companies, for example, trucking companies, is sustainability, being future-proof. How does that affect your business, and how are you taking this into consideration?
Yeah, I think there was an interesting article a couple, years ago by Lidl, the big retailer, who is also has some sustainability ambitions, that they don't want to move fresh produce from Latin America to the Netherlands via air freight anymore, because per kilogram they then exhaust a lot of CO2. So more is moving towards ocean versus air. I think that's something that you see happening. Then if you look at the shipping industry, like the shipping lines, so that the big vessels that are incoming into Rotterdam, you can look at it kind of with a dark lens, saying this is probably one of the dirtiest industries, which is true, because if you look at it as compared to countries that also emit CO2, shipping over the sea would be the 6th largest polluter in terms of list of countries. So very significant. But if you look at it, what is the most CO2 efficient way to transport a kilogram of goods? Then it's shipping. Then it's via the ocean, because on that vessel there's 20,000 TEUs, 20,000 containers that can carry 20 tons of goods per TEU. So in a way, it is actually very efficient. And then there's a lot of innovation happening within that, because we of course also need to report on our CO2 emissions, especially the traders, so our customers. So we're partnering with a couple firms to provide very accurate data on their emissions, which depend of course on the sailing speed and the size of the vessel and the weight of the cargo. And on the other hand, and that's also a very interesting innovation, I think, is that we're using more and more biofuels and cleaner fuels where the CO2 emissions are much lower, but also the other emissions are a lot lower, like the sulfur, which is very damaging, of course, in the environment.
And are these also things you envision for your company to rely on these things more often in the future? Generally, what are your visions for the future, and what maybe are steps that you need to take right now in order to fulfill these?
Yeah, you mean within sustainability then, as an example?
As an example, yeah.
Yeah. So within sustainability, we're kind of in between, right? We're the broker. And it's also typically what the commodity that we move can bear. If we're moving a very low-priced commodity, then the customer is typically not willing to pay a premium price for shipping that with green fuels, because the price is typically a couple dozen % more costly. And you have to take that into the cost price. So we do envision that we want to make it very clear for customers what the most CO2 efficient route is, but also provide them with options to actually further limit that. So if you choose a CO2 efficient route, you can also optionally choose to bunker the right fuels for your container. So that's, I think, what we can do. And that part is also, the last part is education, really telling customers on how to mitigate emissions.
Thank you very much for sharing that, for all the information about Shypple, and good luck with the future endeavors.
Thank you.